With WWE heading into Saturday night's main event and SummerSlam, and AEW heading into Redemption and All In, the biggest shows of the summer are officially starting to take shape. Seth Rollins left Roman Reigns laying, CM Punk is the new WWE Champion, and who best to challenge him other than QB1 himself, Cody Rhodes? What does this mean for Sami Zayn? Gunther attacking Nick Aldis, and Baron Corbin making his shocking return to SmackDown. And then on AEW side, we have a brand new world champion in Kenny Omega. What does that mean for him? What does this mean for Will Ospreay, now being a Death Rider? Where does this leave MJF? We got a lot of big questions that we are going to try and tackle on today's episode. And that's with everything including Raw, SmackDown, and Dynamite. We have some big questions and a few concerns, and without further ado, let's get straight to it.
Summon the Spectre.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 26 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I am your host, JariSpectre, and I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Wednesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. I will be completely honest, my voice is shot. My nose is stuffy. I do not feel good whatsoever, so I apologize if I don't sound enthusiastic or just seem like my normal self. I am definitely feeling it. And with it being 100 degrees outside right now, I am also just mentally out of it. But we have a show to do, and we're going to do our best to get through it. We're going to talk about Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite. We got some key takeaways to cover. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins to start. I will say, their segment, their contract signing they had on Raw on Monday, it was very, very good. There's a couple things I would have tweaked, and we'll get to it when we cover that segment. But overall, Roman bodied him on the mic, but Seth took everything personally and ended up standing tall in the end after the physical altercation. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes are pretty much on a one-way ticket now to SummerSlam. How does Sami Zayn factor into all of this? We'll talk about it. I'm sure there's going to be some way, shape, or form that he does end up getting involved. And considering with Saturday night's main event between Cody, Punk, Gunther, and Sami, that tag match, you know for a fact he will be involved. And then over on Dynamite, which was probably the major talking point this week, because it very much has a lot of the fan base and a lot of the community divided. Kenny Omega is your new AEW champion. How are we feeling about it? What does this mean for All In? We're going to talk about it right here on today's podcast. Make sure you guys follow me on all social media platforms. All the links will be in the description down below. And without further ado, let's go ahead and let's start with what happened on Monday. Show started, Brock Lesnar, ɓʌBɛ. The segment itself really didn't do a whole lot of anything. Brock just showed up to work, and I'm sure he got a very nice payday. I will be completely honest. Good for him. He deserves all the money in the world. But Brock and Paul started in the ring, and they were talking about the matchup between ɓʌBɛ for SummerSlam. And there were police. There were extras out there dressed as policemen because they did not want Brock and ɓʌBɛ touching before SummerSlam, which I will say, I think that's a great move because the next time they should touch should be when the bell rings inside Hell in a Cell. Did they need policemen and extras to tell that story? I don't think so. That's just me personally. I think it was a little overdone, but I will say the segment itself I did think was solid. The crowd was super, super into it. Everybody loves ɓʌBɛ. People are waiting to get their hands on this match. And honestly, I think a lot of people are like, oh, is it going to be good? It's Brock. It's a Brock match. You already know what to expect. Yeah, it's Hell in a Cell, but at the same time, like, you know, what difference is it going to make? I guarantee it's going to be a lot different. I think Brock is willing to work his ass off in his hometown under one of the most prestigious WWE stipulation matches, which is Hell in a Cell. Granted, the name itself, Hell in a Cell, definitely took a hit years and years ago, and I'm glad that Triple H and the WWE team and TKO are trying to bring back the prestige of the Hell in a Cell match. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre absolutely killed it. That was the last time we saw a Hell in a Cell match was between those two, and they absolutely killed it. Will Brock and Oba be able to top it is the question. Do I think they'll top it? No. Do I think they'll be right next to it? Absolutely. They both have so much potential to put on an absolute banger with fantastic moments, especially in a stipulation like Hell in a Cell. Nobody is doubting that whatsoever. Will it be as good as Drew and Punk? That I'm not 100% sure. And considering the story, I do feel like Drew and Punk had way more substance. And although it was over a bracelet, which is a very weird thing, at the end of the day, they made the most out of that story. And everything got crossed, everything fell into place, and it honestly made sense. Does this story do the same? Well, let's talk about it. Brock and Oba, their first matchup was WrestleMania. The fans were hollering for this match. I was in that boat. I wanted to see Oba versus Brock at Mania. We got our match. The match itself was short, sweet, to the point. Brock retires. This is the part where it gets confusing. He was gone for 2 months. We never got a rhyme or reason why he came back other than, oh, I need to prove that I can beat Oba Femi, which he did. He ended up doing that. And now this is leading to the trilogy inside Hell in a Cell. Do we see blood? Yes. I do think we're going to see some blood. And is it going to be violent? Absolutely. No doubt about that whatsoever. And the only person that should come out of this is Oba Femi. And I think inside Hell in a Cell would be the perfect send-off for Brock Lesnar. I do hope, if that is the case, that we get that part of it on television. To be like, Brock, I will retire you once and for all. It can be as simple as that. Just that one sentence. Because that will define Oba Femi. And literally, I mean, he, even after the loss he took to Brock, his momentum did not get halted whatsoever. Which we all knew, and I knew people were upset about Oba losing. But once again, you have to have somebody lose at some point. Why not have it be to Brock? You know, in the realm of the story that we're telling, it made sense. But I do think this match is going to be phenomenal. There really isn't much else they can really sell us on per storyline other than Oba Femi saying, Brock, I will retire you once and for all. That's literally the only thing that they have yet to touch. Everything else has been perfect. They should not touch each other until Hell in a Cell. Did it need the policemen? No. But at the same time, you made Oba look dominant. You made Brock look like a beast. Paul Heyman's, you know, in a sense, still playing scared, quote unquote. So overall, I did think everything worked to start Monday Night Raw. Io Sky versus Roxanne Perez. This match was actually really solid, and it was a good boost for Roxanne. Io looked solid as well. Io ended up beating Roxanne, and then after the match, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez attacked Io, and Sol Ruca ended up getting involved, trying to help, but the heels still ended up standing tall. Curious to see what will happen when Stephanie Vaquer comes back, because I know her name has not been brought up at all as of late. And I know for a fact she's got to be getting close to a return. So if Liv Morgan does beat Io, which that is a very likely possibility. I don't want to say that, oh yeah, Io deserves the title. I would love to see Io as champion. I do, however, feel that Liv Morgan somehow, some way will sneak out with the title, even though she has done absolutely fuck all with the title. And then hopefully we get a Stephanie Vaquer interaction, or she makes her big grand return and attacks Liv Morgan, and then we can pick up right where we left off. So overall, very good match. I just hate the direction that we're going with Liv Morgan as champion, because honestly, she has done nothing. Speaking of doing nothing, and I'm going to try and pump the brakes, I will say, this next segment, the segment between the Alpha Academy and the Vision, it was cool. It was a cool segment. I don't want to say that it was bad, because it wasn't bad. But I do have a lot of gripes, and we'll touch upon that right now. The Vision come out and celebrate their championship win over the Street Profits. Logan Paul, Braun Breaker, Austin Theory, and Maxine Dupree are in the ring, and they're celebrating. But then out comes the Alpha Academy right away. And Tozawa says, Maxine, why did you do this? And Maxine pretty much was saying, you guys said I can go do whatever I want. And this is what I wanted to do. It's not fair that I'm getting blamed for leaving, because I didn't leave. You guys literally, we all discussed and agreed that, yeah, we can all kind of go do our own little thing. Otis said, Maxine, why him? And she was just like, you guys don't even know Austin Theory. Like, you guys don't even understand. Like you guys don't know him like I do. And then as Maxine was explaining this, Austin Theory is laughing, and he pretty much is just like, you think you have a shot with Maxine? Look at you and look at me. Like, the typical alpha male type stuff that, you see on an everyday basis. Otis then gets angry and pretty much is trying to have this fairy tale ending with Maxine. Maxine goes in and she's about to kiss him, and then gets low blowed by Austin Theory. And then the Vision just strike. They beat up everybody. Otis shows a little bit of life in the brawl, but then Braun Breaker levels him with a spear, levels Tozawa with a spear, and the heels ended up standing tall in the end. My big gripe about this has nothing to do with the story itself. It has everything to do with one man and one man only, and that is Braun Breaker. For those of you that know me personally, I am a big Braun Breaker guy. I think he has the it factor. He obviously grew up in the business. He knows what he's doing. He's a very solid in-ring worker. His character is there. It just hasn't been tapped into enough. The problem is, let's look back a year ago to the day, maybe even a little bit prior to, and look at where he is now. Those two individuals are night and day different. Braun Breaker, last year, he was the star pupil. Dude is the guy. He's the it factor. He can do all this crazy stuff for a guy his size. He is legit as they come. And then now you look at him, and he is like a shell of himself. And that's because he's still in the Vision. The Vision is dead. Dead. There is no reason the Vision should be a group anymore, unless the plan is that we are going to get Braun Breaker away from the Vision. The Vision, as a faction, is holding Braun Breaker back. And right now, WWE cannot afford to be holding stars back. We've seen this time and time again on television. They need him to get back to where he was. I don't know if that means he needs to go after the Intercontinental Championship again. I don't know if that means that we need to booster him up to the main event quite yet. But needless to say, the vision and that whole character / iteration of Braun Breaker, it's not working. And now I want to kind of hold my breath because you can kind of see it playing out on television that, you know, he doesn't really want to be there. The way he moves, the way he's kind of just acting, like he doesn't really want to be there, but he still is. Like, we see it slowly starting to play out, but we need to, like, kick it into gear. You know what I mean? Like, Braun he needs to get away from them. And obviously he is going to thrive away from them, and the product in of itself will be better off for it. That's my big gripe. Next match, Jimmy Uso versus Royce Keys. This match ended up breaking down when Jacob Fatu got involved. It ended up being a disqualification when Fatu attacked Royce Keys, doubling down that, yep, he is bloodline through and through. Solo Sikoa then came out and he tried to reason with Jimmy and Jacob, and he's just like, hey, blood is thicker than family. I'm coming back to the family. He raises up the one, turns it into the thumb, Samoan spike, so he pretty much tricked his brothers. Solo Sikoa then attacks Fatu and Jimmy, but the numbers game end up getting back to him. LA Knight comes in, makes the save with a chair, and then the match is set for SummerSlam. The Usos and Jacob Fatu versus Royce Keys, LA Knight, and Solo Sikoa. 6-man tag at SummerSlam. I get it. This is what people have to kind of deal with as we progress them. You know, not everybody's going to be in the main event spot every single time. I know eventually, hopefully towards the end of the year, we can get LA Knight closer to that main event spot. This will help build up Royce Keys in a bigger way, considering that, you know, we saw him at the Royal Rumble, then we didn't see him till after WrestleMania, and now he's starting to get featured more and more, which is great. We love Royce Keys. Jacob Fatu definitely took a step back from where he was right after WrestleMania, but this is all a part of the storyline. I understand it. The Usos are exactly where they need to be. And Solo Sikoa, I know they're trying to do this babyface thing with him. I haven't seen it really come off in a babyface-ish way. So I'm hoping that they can kind of really stamp it and approve that, okay, yep, he is a full-blown babyface, because people are still, like, iffy on it. Because even when he did attack Fatu and Jimmy, there wasn't really any sort of reaction. They were just kind of just watching it. And I didn't understand it. But they're going to try it. We'll see how it goes. And like I said in previous episodes, I'm assuming this is all going to lead to War Games in some way, shape, or form. Number 1 contendership for the Intercontinental Championship gauntlet match. We had Dominic Mysterio and Joe Hendry start. It was solid. A lot of these, like, gauntlet matches, you kind of have to be smart with your moves and your times, because it's pretty much a bunch of matches summed up in the one. So everything is kind of cut short. But Dominic Mysterio and Joe Hendry started. Dominic ended up winning. Then Dominic Mysterio versus Javon Evans. Javon ended up winning. Dragon Lee was third to enter. Dragon Lee was fourth to enter, but then was rolled up by Javon. Out comes Rusev. Rusev, although Javon looked fantastic in this, Rusev ended up making Javon Evans pass out. Then out comes Chad Gable. Chad Gable pulls off the upset over Rusev. And then Ethan Page came out last, and Chad Gable survived, which means number 1 contender for the IC title is Chad Gable and he is going on to SummerSlam to wrestle Penta for the IC title. And considering Chad Gable is from Minnesota, that reaction for him is going to be awesome. He's going to put on a banger with Penta. I am not expecting anything less than a banger. You know for a fact you're going to get a great match between both of those guys. I'm very, very happy the right person won. And then in the main event, contract signing between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Throughout the show, they played a bunch of the history and lore of the Shield, which was really, really cool to see. I will say I'm shocked that they didn't show Dean Ambrose nearly as much, because obviously he's, Jon Moxley now, and he's a part of a different company doing a completely different thing. But they did still showcase him for obvious reasons, which was cool to see. But Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins come out to the ring, and Roman pretty much, I'll keep it short and sweet, he pretty much bodied Seth Rollins as far as verbal assaults. And it got to the point where Rollins then comes in, and then it got to the point where Rollins had enough, and he's pretty much just telling Roman, you can be this number one guy, whatever. For years, I always was trying to chase it, but now I know I am who I am, and I know that I'm number one, and I'm going to beat you because you have never beaten me. And then Roman takes another dig at Seth, and that's where everything comes to a blow. Both men start brawling. Seth gets on top. He's about to go for the stomp. Eats a Superman punch. Roman's setting up for something. Gets taken out by a pedigree. And then Seth Rollins finally ends it with a stomp. And Seth Rollins stands tall to end Monday Night Raw. The segment itself was very good. They touched on a lot of very important points. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Roman buried the Money in the Bank briefcase by saying that, Seth Rollins had to use it. No, he didn't bury the briefcase. He buried how Seth Rollins got to the top. So he's taking digs at Seth Rollins and taking the easy way out to always get to the spot versus just being the guy. Let's just make that perfectly clear. And yeah, he pretty much said, every time you've been on top, things haven't been nearly as good. And anytime you do get on top, you end up getting injured, and then you have to give up your title. Very, very real things. And Seth Rollins, being the true babyface in this story, is pretty much saying, yeah, everything you're saying is right, but I am who I am. I'm Seth freaking Rollins. You will never be me. And I know I'm better than you because you've never beaten me. That's the story. And what does this mean for SummerSlam? It's simple. I mean, let's keep it a buck here. Seth Rollins is not going to walk out as the new World Heavyweight Champion. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry for all the Seth Rollins stans. I love both guys. Obviously, I love Roman. I love Seth. But per storyline and per the direction that WWE is planning to go long term, you can't put the title on Seth Rollins. As much as you would love to, it's just not going to happen. But that was Raw in a nutshell. I will say, Raw was very, very focused. And although I was just feeling drained from everything, I still thought it was a very focused show. It was very solid. The in-ring was actually fairly decent, which is good to see. And I think that should be a standard. A lot of people are like, oh, the build towards SummerSlam has been lazy, which realistically it has been. Let's not kid ourselves. But overall, this show on Monday, it was very focused. It tapped into a bunch of stories building towards SummerSlam. We had more matches announced for SummerSlam. Things got done on this show. The thing is, though, if this is what WWE is going to be going forward, we need more shows like this. We need more focused weekly shows. Because that's what gets the people to care. It doesn't have to be, a bunch of wrestling. It doesn't have to be a bunch of story, or it doesn't have to be a bunch of segments. It just needs things that people are caring about and invested in, and having it play out week to week. And even if you take a week off or whatever the case, or hey, we don't need to touch upon this segment again, it can take a backseat. Let's put somebody else in the spot. We can do a quick little video package of, hey, this is what happened last week. Like, the formula itself, I think, is really what needs to get fixed. The formula for how they do weekly television is the issue. Because, they can turn it on and tell great stories and get people excited like that. They can do it like there's no tomorrow. It's the format of being able to be like, okay, we're going to touch upon this week. We're going to do this. Hopefully next week we can do a video package if we don't have everybody available. Just anything that we can keep things moving and keep going forward. And obviously we can touch on side quests, stuff like that. That's what weekly television should look like. But it doesn't. And that's the problem. SmackDown. Nick Aldis opened the show, and he introduced the new WWE Champion, CM Punk. He also addressed the fallout from Raw and welcomed SmackDown's new champion. Punk said that he intends to be a fighting champion, and pretty much says, whoever wants a shot at my title, or anybody that feels they deserve it, come and get it. And sure as shit, out comes QB1, out comes Cody Rhodes, and he pretty much says, hey, the last time we talked, you said you never know when a championship opportunity is going to fall from the sky, and yet here you are, the WWE Champion. And remember what I told you? I said, just say when. And then that's where CM Punk said, when. Cody then responds, SummerSlam. So the match on paper is officially made for SummerSlam, for the WWE title. Cody versus Punk. There was zero doubt in my mind that that was going to happen. Zero doubt. The question, though, where does Sami Zayn play into this? Because for a fact that he is going to have some gripes about it, but he's going to feel some sort of type of way about this, and eventually he is going to be crawling and sneaking his way into that title picture. How we're going to get there, I don't know. But per Sammy's character, that's what he should do. Gunther then demanded that he deserves the next opportunity, while Sami Zayn also confronted Punk after losing on Raw. Aldis then made CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes official for SummerSlam and announced that it will be CM Punk versus Cody Rhodes versus Gunther and Sami Zayn for Saturday night's main event. The first match of SmackDown, we had Finn Balor versus Tama Tonga. And this match was actually very, very solid. Obviously, both men have history with the Bullet Club. Finn Balor ended up winning with the coup de grace, and then Tama and Tonga obviously tried to stand tall and overwhelm Balor, but it just wasn't enough. I'm glad to see that Finn Balor is starting to pick up some momentum, because he, like I said numerous times over, he needs to be a main staple on SmackDown. He needs to have that Prince mentality that he had back in NXT during his second run, because honestly, I think his second run as the Prince is better than the Demon stuff from his first run. Maybe a hot take. Definitely could be a hot take, but that's just my personal opinion. Jimmy Uso defeated Royce Keys. Nothing really substantial of note other than Solo tried to interfere, but Jacob returned and took him out. And then Jimmy capitalized with the distraction and won with a spear. Jade Cargill defeated Alexa Bliss. Honestly, I don't care about this storyline whatsoever. Jade had help from B-Fab and Michin, giving her a constant numbers advantage, while Charlotte Flair being in Bliss's corner. Like I said, I know they're eventually going to get Charlotte and Alexa splitting away from each other, but I just don't care. I really don't. Jade then hit Jaded for the victory, and after the match, B-Fab and Michin restrained Charlotte while Jade crushed Alexa Bliss's arm with a steel chair, which is then going to build up their rivalry going into SummerSlam. Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes, this match was actually very solid. It ended in a no contest because we had a returning Baron Corbin. That's right, Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin made his shocking return. I will say it was very, very cool to see Baron Corbin back on television. I do feel like this Nomad character that he picked up after he left and was released from WWE the first time around, absolutely fantastic. I think he's going to do well in the mid-card division for SmackDown, and I'm very, very happy to see him. I was able to talk to him when he came to Wisconsin. He is one hell of a dude, super, super genuine, very, very good in the ring, and honestly, I'm very, very happy for him. And then the main event, Gunther came out and pretty much addressed his frustrations with Nick Aldis, and Nick then came out, and although he was furious over Aldis's booking between Punk and Rhodes for SummerSlam, instead of giving him the match, Gunther then attacked Nick Aldis and put him in a sleeper hold, and then the show went off the air with Cody Rhodes attempting to make the save, but obviously there just wasn't enough time, and the segment got cut short. We talked about this last week. We knew for a fact, and I called it, you can go check out my recent short that I did on it, Gunther versus Nick Aldis is happening. Gunther versus Nick Aldis is going to happen at SummerSlam. Whether they do the career thing with Nick Aldis, that I don't know, but the match itself is going to happen. There's no way it cannot happen now. It's going to happen. And then, like I said before, with Cody, Punk, obviously that match itself is the biggest match that WWE can do at this point, other than Rock and Roman. But with The Rock, you have no idea what to expect. His schedule changes quicker than flicking on an on-off switch for a light, you know? So this is the biggest match that they can do as of now. But like I said before, with Sami Zayn being in this picture, you kind of have to play it a little bit safe, in a sense, because if you leave Sami off of SummerSlam, what does that mean for him? You know? And the only other place that he can be the greatest asset is to have him in the title match. Obviously, he doesn't need to walk out the victor, but at least have him in the match. And then at least you have some story and a little bit of something between Cody and Punk going into the winter and then coming out next spring when WrestleMania season comes rolling around. Then at WrestleMania, you can get the one-on-one match between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. I'm hoping that's kind of the direction that they're going, but all of that remains to be seen. SmackDown itself, it wasn't bad. I will say, it wasn't bad. Parts of the show were very, very boring, but having Punk as champion on that show definitely gave the show a little bit more light, which is a great thing, and it kind of helped elevate everything else around it. As SummerSlam gets closer and closer, we need things to ramp up a little bit more. And we talked about this just a little bit ago when we were talking about Raw. There needs to be a standard, and the formula for weekly television needs to get addressed. Because there are so many times where the show feels boring, when realistically it shouldn't feel boring. It should feel like must-see, can't-miss television. And the best way to do that is to have stories and characters that people are invested in, even from the top all the way to the bottom. Obviously, they're experimenting a little bit with this now. Obviously, the history with Trick and Carmelo, the storyline between the Vision and Alpha Academy, it's something different. I will say it's something different, but at least it's something. Before, we didn't get anything. So, we're slowly kind of making progress towards that, but now we just need to hammer it home. And especially once we start getting new call-ups from NXT to SmackDown to Raw, this is where we need to start figuring out, okay, where do we want to place everybody? And obviously, it's the never-ending cycle of wrestling and characters. Everybody has highs, everybody has lows, everybody has in-betweens, everybody has plateaus. It's obviously, there's some things that are just out of control. But if we change the formula for weekly television, that's where I feel like things are going to get better, as long as they keep that the standard. So all of that will remain to be seen. Obviously, next week, it could be a completely different story, and they could just, hit banger after banger, home run after home run. But this is WWE we're talking about. Do you really think that might happen? I personally don't think so. So, obviously, we'll wait and see. But, that's always a shot in the dark. Last but certainly not least, AEW Dynamite. Kenny Omega opened the show backstage and said that this is likely his last chance at the AEW title if he loses to MJF, but he vows to prove that he can still thrive when the pressure is the highest. Tommaso Ciampa versus Chris Jericho in a street fight, per se, even though it was on the beach. I will say I did love the aesthetic of the stage for AEW. I appreciated the sand, the trees, the beach chairs, everything that kind of made it beach break and really kind of just brought out that theme. I appreciate that. It being outside was cool, except the risk you run with outside shows is the crowd not being loud enough, which for parts of the show that was the case. But either way, it was still really, really cool to see. Tommaso Ciampa versus Chris Jericho in a street fight. It was a very violent match, very violent brawl to start. And following the match, and Tommaso Ciampa ended up beating Chris Jericho, which was very much the right move. And following the match, Ciampa smashed Jericho with a chair and attempted to use a power drill on him before security showed up. Like I said, it was very, very solid. And this is a nice boost for Tommaso Ciampa. It's a little side quest, obviously. But at least it's something. At least he's not just being thrown in the back to catering. Will Ospreay and MJF had a backstage segment. This segment was very, very good. And the part of me that was just like, damn, after the show was over, was because it's just like, damn, we're not going to get this at All In. Because the interaction between Will Ospreay and MJF was so, so good. MJF proves time and time and time again why he is the guy for AEW. Every single time. And Will Ospreay is a great babyface. Let's not sugarcoat. He really is a very good babyface. Ospreay said that he hoped Kenny wins so that they could meet at All In, but MJF said that's not going to happen, and he is the reason that AEW is thriving. Ospreay called MJF overrated and dependent on shortcuts, and MJF ended up spitting in the face of Ospreay as a brawl then ensued as security had to pull them apart. It was very, very good. Very good. Speaking of very good, Kyle Fletcher versus Konosuke Takeshita for the International Championship. This match was fucking awesome. Takeshita and Fletcher absolutely killed it. Especially on free weekly television. They fucking brought it. And Kyle Fletcher ended up walking out the new International Champion. This was very, very good. If you guys did not watch it, go back and watch Kyle Fletcher versus Takeshita. This match was fan-fucking-tastic. After the match, Don Callis and the family came out, but Mick Foley then interrupted and praised Fletcher, but then verbally roasted Don Callis. Kevin Knight then reminded everybody that he still has a future AEW title shot. Andrade then interrupted and said that not on his watch, pretty much. The only one that's getting an AEW title shot is going to be him. And then that's when Darby Allin appeared with a exploding skateboard, which I was not expecting that. And then that's where a big brawl ensued with the family and the baby faces. Next match we had was the Death Riders, Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay versus the Workhorsemen. It was an enhancement match. Let's be real, it was an enhancement match. This was to make the Death Riders look good, and they did. Death Riders win. Nobody cares. Hikaru Shida cut a promo backstage as she is now the new Women's TBS Championship and that she is the ace of TBS, and she promised to redefine the championship during her reign. Right after that, we had a Women's Casino Gauntlet match, which included Athena, Maya World, Sky Blue, Mina Shirakawa, Rina, Julia Hart, Thunder Rosa, and a surprising Willow Nightingale. Tekla was on commentary, and I will say Tekla is fucking fantastic. She is so funny. And the match itself was actually very solid, very chaotic, obviously, with a multi-person match. And the surprise of Willow, even though it really didn't feel much like a surprise, it was very much just good to see her back. Willow ended up winning, and she is now the new number one contender for the AEW Women's Championship. Tekla then attacked Willow after the match with a spear, and then Mercedes Moné ended up getting involved, and she ended up standing tall. So what does this mean going into All In? Most likely, it might end up being some sort of a triple threat. That remains to be seen, though. But I do think we're going to see for sure Tekla and Mercedes Moné in that situation. And then how does Willow get involved? I guess we'll have to wait until tonight. Jack Perry had a video package, and he officially announced that he has re-signed with AEW because he wants to be the next top guy. And then our main event. MJF versus Kenny Omega for the AEW World title. If Kenny loses, he can no longer wrestle for the title again. This match was very good. I don't want to say it was the best match that they had, because it definitely is not. But the match itself was very, very good. There were parts of this match, especially towards the end, where I was starting to get a little angry. I am sick and tired of the 1 count. Anytime somebody gets hit with a big move and they kick out at 1, it drives me fucking bonkers. It's one of my biggest pet peeves in wrestling right now. Nobody should be kicking out at 1 unless you're a Sting or somebody way higher on that pedestal. Kenny did it that one time against Will Ospreay, and now everybody feels that they can do it. And granted, Kenny did it tonight, or Kenny did it on Wednesday. And yeah, it's still, in a sense, it worked. But the thing that pisses me off is that everybody thinks they can do it. But they can't. Whatever happened to the art of kicking out at 2.9? Granted, obviously, all wrestlers know how to do it. But I look back at an Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano from NXT TakeOver New York. That is the art of kicking out. Not the shock of kicking out at 1 just to pop a crowd just for the sake of popping a crowd. No, that's where you have people invested into what you're doing in the ring, and somehow, some way, the babyface still sneaks out right as he's about to hit 3. We need to bring that back, not this fucking kicking out at 1 bullshit. That's my first big gripe. My second is that there were a lot of big hope spots, which is good, but I did feel like it was starting to become a little more redundant. There were like maybe 2 sequences that you could have cut from that, and it still would have been just as good. Just the sake of doing bumps for the sake of doing bumps, you're not doing yourself any good. That's just my personal gripe about it. Trust me, I know. But either way, it doesn't take away from the match. The match itself was still very, very good. And we have a new AEW champion in Kenny Omega. He ended up hitting the one-winged angel for the win. And then after the match, he cut a promo saying, it doesn't matter how much you get knocked down, you always got to keep fighting and you got to get right back up. And that's exactly what he did. He is now the new AEW World Champion, which means we saw the graphic for All In, and that it's going to be Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega one more time. I know a lot of people were very upset about Kenny Omega beating MJF. I was partially in that boat. I am not going to complain whatsoever about seeing a Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay match. I think anybody would be sick to say that, oh, I don't want to see that match. Now, the only exception to that is, okay, we've seen it twice already. Why do we need to see it a third time? The thing about wrestling is wrestling always happens best in threes. Think about it. 1, 2, 3, pinning combination. Comebacks usually are 3 big moves. Shines in the beginning of the match, usually 3 big moves. Everything is best in threes. That's just how the wrestling business works and how matches are produced. Everything works best in threes. Same with matches. Everything is best in threes. The story itself has more history with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. There is way more to tell between those two versus an MJF. Am I upset that MJF lost his title? Yes, I am. I do not think it was fair to him to lose it to begin with, and I do feel like he should have held on to it until All In. But I understand the appeal of Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay again versus Will Ospreay and MJF. I understand the appeal. The story literally writes itself between those two. And as far as putting it on paper, I think a lot more people are going to tune in to a Kenny Omega Will Ospreay 3 versus an MJF Will Ospreay. That's just the God honest truth. I mean, I'm not happy about it because I love MJF, I love Will, I love Kenny, but that's just the God honest truth when it comes to booking and promotion. That's the business side of things that a lot of people and a lot of fans always fail to consider. That's why they did it. Now, does it mean that MJF is cooked for All In? I don't think so. I guess it really just depends on the severity of his knee injury, which, from my understanding, it sounds like it wasn't nearly as bad as what people were anticipating. But do you run the risk of potentially having it get injured more by having him work more? That's a bit of a toss-up. It can go either way. And that really just comes down to the performer themselves. That's really all that acclaims to. There's not much else you can really say or do about that. But the truth is, although I am upset that MJF was not handled properly going into this match, and that he will not be champion going into All In, which is your biggest show of the year, and why not have your ultimate babyface versus your ultimate heel? I understand that story. But the history of Kenny Omega and Will can tell a lot more versus MJF and Will Ospreay. The only other reason I can also think that they decided to go with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay is with Kenny being involved versus MJF, there is now a sliver of a chance that Will Ospreay could not walk out of All In as the AEW champion. Just a sliver. Do I think he will walk out? Yeah, I do think he's going to walk out of Wembley Stadium as the champion. But having Kenny Omega as the champion going into it, there now creates a little bit of a sliver. Because let's say he does not walk out of All In as champion. Now he starts going down that dark rabbit hole. Now the Death Riders, although they sounded appealing before, now they really start to sound appealing. And now we can get heel Ospreay back into the mix of it. Which, I'll be completely honest, if he's going to be a Death Rider, it toes the line. You got to be very careful with babyfaces towing that line. But ruthless Will Ospreay as a Death Rider, especially coming off of the biggest loss of his career, that can create a lot more dynamic stories with him not walking out as champion. I mean, either way, it would still be just as good if he does walk out as champion. But with Kenny being there, that little sliver that he might not walk out as champion, that stays there. Versus if you had MJF in that situation, everybody knows, everybody and their grandmama knows that MJF is not walking out of Wembley as champion. That's why I feel that AEW went that route. Am I happy about it? No. But I understand it. And yeah, there could be a way that you could possibly make it a triple threat, but does it need to be a triple threat? And would it necessarily make sense to have it as a triple threat? I don't know how they would tell that story at this point, but there is that possibility. And that's going to do it for today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said in the beginning, I apologize. I really am not feeling all that great. But I hope that you guys stuck around with me. And if you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that bell for all notifications. You guys can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JariSpectre. And you guys can also follow the SpectreVerse page on Facebook as well at the SpectreVerse. If you guys are really into gaming, please go subscribe to my gaming YouTube channel. That will be at more JariSpectre. Otherwise, you can look up JariSpectre Live. Anytime that I decide that I'm going to go live with gaming, you guys can see it on that channel first. I know I did some college football gameplay earlier last week. I did some Apex Legends as well, so I really hope you guys go check that out. It's usually a good time over there. We always shoot the shit and have some fun. So if you're into that kind of stuff, go check it out. As far as Jaden Mercer goes, if you guys are in the Wisconsin area and you want to come watch me wrestle, there are 2 opportunities this weekend that you guys can go do that. This weekend, this Saturday, I will be at Freak Toys in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. I will be wrestling. So if you guys want to come watch me wrestle, there's your opportunity. Also, the next day, Sunday, ACW will be at Tanner's in Kimberly. I will be wrestling on that show as well. I wrestle Brock Hall. That match is going to be a fucking banger. Do not miss it. And then the following week, not this upcoming Saturday, but the following Saturday, the 25th, I will be wrestling at WrestleBash. That is confirmation here. I'm not going to post that anywhere else except here. So there are 3 different times that you guys can go watch me wrestle. So if you are in the Wisconsin area, please come check it out. It's going to be a hell of a time. And until episode 27, we will see each and every single one of you next time. Peace out.
Summon the Spectre.